Take a look on that slide presentation. Okay, let's try to get the maximum size for this. Everybody can see the presentation, all right?
Yes.
All right, cool. All right. So we're going to talk about some more terms. Some more terms in this whole thing of digital design. So some of you had learned about we had discussed DPI, image size, bit depth, and all of that stuff already. But there is one other piece of that pie that we're going to talk about, which is color depth. All right. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. We're good to go. Okay. So we're talking about bit depth now. Just to make sure that we remember, right? And let me make this a little bit clearer so that you can see these slides a bit better. Here we go. Alright, turn off. Alright, so in talking about bit depth, just a refresher, we have. Do we remember what is a bitmap image? Anybody? Anybody? Say again? Sorry, an image using some kind of?
Now connected to Monster Asus.
I'm looking for one keyword. Hold on 1 second. I don't think I hear any on my speaker. I think I might have muted something. The Skype call came in and kick off my speaker. Alexa, connect Bluetooth.
Searching. You're already connected to Monster Asus. To connect a different device, go to the Alexa app.
Dear Lord. This thing just come in and just totally kick out my speakers. Try using my headset. Let me just restart this thing, see if it will come back. Coming along, guys. I don't know if you can hear me, but I think I might have to reboot. I don't know. A call just came in and then my speakers just totally went out. Not sure why. It seems that you're hearing me because I can see the bars moving, but I just cannot hear anything from Zoom. All right. Do a mic check. Can you guys speak? Let me see if I can hear you now.
Check.
Okay, good. All right. Right. So apparently, I don't know when Skype rang, it just switch over my output device magically, so it kick off Zoom. I don't even know. And you know, Skype run with Windows, so it's not like I can turn that off. Anyway, so before we got cut off there, so we're speaking about bitmap. So you were saying, who was it that was saying something? Was it Kings?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was saying, what do you think a bitmap image is?
Well, sir, I would say it has to do with some kind of vector or algorithm. That's what I.
Nope, I think you have it mixed up. That is a vector. So remember, we spoke about vector images versus raster images. But if I don't know if you guys put it together yet, but raster has to do with what? Starts with a P. What? What's that? Pixels, right? Exacto mundo. So pixels, raster, and bitmap, they really are saying the same thing. You probably are saying, okay, so you know why they have to call it these different names, and I don't know. I think it's kind of like, you know how names evolve over generations, you know. So when computers just came in, you know, the name was bitmap, But then I don't know when it became raster images, or maybe it was originally raster, but they're all the same: raster, bitmap, pixels. We're speaking about the same kind of technology, and the kind of technology is that it uses dots to make up an image. So we perhaps know all of this part already, but it's important for you to know in order to understand the next part of what we're saying. So, so if you look on this image here, this image with the A, you will see that it's made up of black and white dots, right? And what this is that it is the image can either be a black dot or a white dot. So there are only two possibilities in this to get that image there that you see on this side. Now, because it can either be black or white, it can be black and white, that's the key thing. It's black or white. We refer to this as having a 1-bit image depth. So this term image depth is a term that you're going to see come up in the future of dealing with images. And I don't know if you've ever noticed, but any program that you've ever used on the computer, whether it's Word or PowerPoint, let me see if I can open just a brand new PowerPoint document here. Right, but whether it's Word, if it's coming up, here we go. Right, so whether it's Word or PowerPoint or any one of these apps, if we try to draw any kind of color, let's just put a random kind of shape here. Let's make this blank. There we go. And if you try to change the color, so you might go to more colors, almost every computer program you might notice has something like this, where you see multiple colors here and you see shades of red, blue, and green, and usually you use the color picker to pick something here. This goes from Photoshop to Paint to just about any program. All right, does this look familiar to you guys? Does it not look familiar to anybody?
Yes, sir, that's familiar.
Right, now you usually see RGB, so perhaps we kind of get the hint of what RGB is. But anybody ever notice that these values always go only to 255 or 0?
Yes, sir.
And the reason for that is what we're going to be looking on today when we talk about bit depth. It may and we're going to see what does that mean and how it's going to affect us using Photoshop. So anyway, in this particular image, the bit that it has a 1-bit image because it can only use black or white. Now, if you look at any random image on your computer, right? And I want you guys to do that now. Just grab any random picture from your, My Pictures, maybe a photo you took, maybe something that you downloaded from the internet, whatever it is. If you take that random image and look in the properties, I'm finding one here. No, I don't think you can look in the properties of the of the image viewer. You gotta right click the file and go to properties here. Here I am. So this is one that I'm doing now. And you might notice where it says bit depth is 24. And the whole reason for today's discussion is to let you guys understand, what does this mean? What does it mean to have a bit depth of 24? So let's go a little further. Now, any computer, any image that you run on the computer, chances are any image, even if it is a super high resolution image or a low resolution image, when you look at the properties, it will always say that it has a 24-bit depth. Now, if we look at what we just talked about a while ago, we say, oh, well, this image, this black and white image has a 1-bit, a 1-bit color depth, right? Say again? Yes. 22? Oh, 32, right. So I'm coming to that. So most images will have 24. Now this black and white image is a 1-bit depth, and if you could open this in your computer, it would tell you, right? So the interesting thing to understand with bit depth is sometimes you will see 24, and this is where things get a little confusing. So you guys are going to have to follow me on this part. In some cases, you might, maybe it's a phone, or it's Photoshop, or it's a particular device. You will open it and it would say bit depth of 8. And sometimes it would say bit depth of 24. When you open Photoshop, Photoshop has a you have to go to a new file. Let's go to a new file here. Or better yet, let's open this image here that I use for my zoom. So when I open this image here and I go to mode here, it says that it is a 8-bit. Yet still on the computer it is telling me that it is 24-bit, and this is the same image actually, right? And this is where I want you guys to understand the difference between these two and what does this bit depth really mean. So on the computer, this black and white image can store 256 possible shades between black and white. However, this image, how much shades can it show? How much possible shades can this show? Can this image show on screen? This A. Exactly. It can either be, well, 2, it can either be black or white, right? So every single square in this image here can either be a black square or a white square. Now let's go back to this image in Photoshop here. Now I don't know if you remember when we did the Photoshop exercises and we zoomed all the way in. So if I zoom all the way in this image here, we always see these square dots that you can see here. Now the idea is,
Today, there are 4 events remaining. There is one event.
Alexa, stop. Sorry, disrupting my class. Right, so if we look at this image, can everybody see that single pixel? Now that single pixel can be any one of 256 shades. This single pixel here. And so can that one, and so can that one, and the list goes on and on. So if we look back at our presentation here, let's clear that. This black and white image can only show black or white pixels, but it can be any amount of pixels between 0 between black and white. Now, because it has 256 possible shades, it's called an 8-bit image, because 256 is 2 to the 8. So it's a little bit of math. So it's called an 8-bit image. Now, I don't know if you ever noticed, but there is pretty much no computer that can give you more than 200 and, well, let me not say no computer, but it is unlikely that you will find any computer program that when you bring up any kind of color picker, like what we were doing here in Photoshop, in PowerPoint, when we went to pick a color, all computer programs are going to tell you that, hey, you can only choose between 0 and 256. And this is why this is 2 to the 8, because it has 256 possible shades. Now, if we look on this chart here, you can see, okay, so this is a 1-bit image because the pixels can either be black or white. But what kind of when you guys see this image on the left, these images on the left, what kind of device comes to mind that would produce images like this, especially this top one here? Anybody? Nope. Or it's because we're living in this virtual world that none of us hasn't do any kind of any kind of scanning since lately, or photocopying. Wait, my speaker never went out again. I hope not. Oh, it might seem so like some person's talking. Maybe this Bluetooth thing not working out at all. I need to do some traditional plug-in speakers. Okay, good. Alright. Yeah, talk again. Right, a scanner or a photocopier. Right? So, when you go to purchase a photocopier, it will actually tell you what bit depth it can produce. And it's perhaps going to tell you something maybe lower than 8. I mean, granted, now times are a bit modern, so you might have some photocopiers that can go to 8-bit. But basically, you know now when it says a 8-bit image, it means that look on this gradient that's here with this color, with this shade, with the shades of gray. Because it can display 256 shades, you know, the image will appear more smooth because your eye cannot discern the difference between shade 200 and shade 201. But if you look at this 2-bit image here, your eyes can see clearly the difference between each shade. So the more shades you pack into an image, the more bit depth you pack into an image, is the smoother the color will appear. Now this has nothing to do with resolution. Resolution is a total different thing, but we speak about resolution already, so we're not going to touch that. Right now we just want to kind of understand that any image pretty much on our computer has this capability. Now, if you look on this slide here now, you will see that on the computer, well, we all know what are primary colors. We've gone back to primary school now, or prep school. What anybody? What are primary colors? Tara, what are primary colors? Let me get somebody else. Good point. Good point. The key part what you said there was there are colors that are used to that you can use to generate every other color on the spectrum when you mix it together. Right? So that would be perhaps one of the key things that I would say. That a primary color is. Give me some primary colors. We don't forget that from school, right? Come on, primary colors. Red. All right, that's the one that we learn about first. Did you guys know that there are more primary colors out there? Meaning colors that you can mix together to get any possible color. Give me another one. Another set of primary colors. Meaning colors, as Tara said, colors that you can use to get any other color on the spectrum. Alright. Cyan and magenta. Your answer isn't quite complete. Because cyan and magenta alone can't give you every color on the spectrum. Say again? Cyan, magenta, yellow. Yeah, Kings, you think they're chipping in and out. That's why sometimes I can't hear you. So right. That is exactly so. Cyan, magenta, yellow. And well, we'll get to the K just soon. We'll get to the K in just a bit. Now there is one that you guys are like totally missing out on. Give me another set of primary colors. Exactamundo. So red, green, and blue are primary colors. Why? Because they mix together to give you every kind of color. The interesting thing about when I always ask this question is, that should be the first one that you would say, because it's like literally the computer screen that you are looking on is an RGB screen. So it is mixing those colors together to get all those colors that you see. Now the thing is that on the computer, when it mixes these colors together, open this thing here, that's this one. Where did you go? There we go. Right. Now on the computer, when it mixes these colors together, what it is really doing is taking a pixel that has a color between for red, between completely black, completely red. Then it is mixing that pixel, mixing it over another pixel that is completely black or completely green, and then mixing another one that is completely black or blue. So for example, when we look back on this image here, remember this is that image that I use there for my zoom profile pic, and when I zoom in, when I use my color picker, here to pick a color, and I'm going to bring this up here, and let's look at RGB here, right? And Channel is singing in the mic.
Sorry.
All right, so if I pick one of these colors here, right, look at these sliders here, guys. So this is telling me that this single pixel that I have highlighted here, right here, that's that pixel there, has a red value, has a red value of 182. It has a green value of 168, and it has a blue value of 159. So this square that is here on the computer is mixing different values from each of these pixels together to bring you this color. And it only has 256 slots in which to do that. Now, when you mix all of these things together, and of course, when you have lots of these pixels packed closely together, that is related to resolution, then it comes together to give you an image. And that is how both of those items work together. So you could have a high resolution image, but if the bit depth was lower than 8, which means, for example, a bit depth of 4, which can only give you what, about 8 different colors, it's going to look like a photocopied image, because each of those pixels is not capable of giving you multiple shades. Now, because you have 3 colors here, a computer will refer to these 3 terms as channels. And you might see the word channels in many ways. Perhaps one of the most popular ways you'll see it in is in Photoshop. In Photoshop, you might notice, for example, when you go to your layers here, bring this up. You might see something called channels. So, for example, this is. Let's turn that off. Come on. Right. So, for example, that is your blue channel. Now, anybody can tell me why on this blue channel? Okay, let me give you a better example. Now, if you look here, you will see that this is really showing me what's on my blue channel, what's on my green channel, and what's on my red channel. So how this works is that it's almost like it's showing me parts of the image that has red in it. This is the parts of the image that has green in it, and this is the parts of the image that has blue in it. And when you enable all of those channels, it's kind of like layering, think of it as layering paint together. Just like when you mix physical paint, you get a different color. Well, it's the same thing, but the computer is mixing it using light. So this takes me to my other kind of area of discussion. Now, if you look at this slide here, let's just bring this up for you here. Let's make it a little bigger. Okay, so you guys, hold on. You guys would have learned color theory from first year. Does anybody here remember color theory? We don't forget that yet. Notice I said yet. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So somebody said CMYK is a type of a set of primary colors because you can use this to get other colors. And somebody said RGB is another set of primary colors as well. Now, let me show you something here. What happens? Well, let me ask you from primary school though. When you play with your paint set and you mix paint together, when you keep mixing color and mixing and mixing and mixing, what happens to the paint? Anybody could tell me? Like, you know what would happen if you mix two colors together? So, but what would happen if you mix like 10 colors together? Anybody can tell me what would start happening to the paint? Ah, it gets brown, right? And somebody else said another option. What was it? Anybody? No, was that? Okay. Right. Now, and I don't know if you remember from those days or if you had to do that in first year, but if you mix two colors together and you say, oh crap, I didn't mean to mix these two colors. Let me try to mix in this third color. Crap, I made another mistake. Let me try to mix in this fourth color. Every time you mix in another color, you get closer to the color black. Because you keep adding and adding and adding paint. And every time you add a paint, it gets closer to black. Now the interesting thing is, on a computer screen, well, let me not go to a computer screen. Remember the days of going out to some kind of event or stage show or club? But anyway, when you go to these places, you see a lot of lights around. So think about those stage lights and think about, you know, so imagine you were mixing, just like how you mix paint together. What if you shine like, you know, you shine two lights to get a different color? What would happen if you keep shining another light and shining another light and another light? What would start happening to that color?
It would start becoming white, sir.
Good answer. So then, what do you notice is the difference between these two types of primary colors? You have some where you mix them together. If you continuously mix, you're going to get closer to black. And you have somewhere if you mix it together, if you continuously mix, you're going to get closer to white. So you really have two types. You have what's called subtractive and additive. Now, I don't know if you may have touched this in color theory, but if you're thinking of it in terms of the computer, a computer screen has additive primary colors. So every time you add another color, the screen itself is just going to get brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. But in the case of your printer that is using a subtractive, or when you're doing your painting using your paintbrush, every time you add a new color, it's going to get closer to black. So that's the real difference between them. Now, on the computer screen, every time we add pixels together and we mix those colors together, it's going to eventually get close to white. Now, this type of image, or most images that you look on the computer and it says 24-bit, it is really saying 24-bit because it has a red channel that has 256 shades of possibilities of red, a green channel that has 256 possibilities of green shade, and a blue channel that has 256 possibilities of blue shade. And all of these shades are just overlapping on each other to give you the final output, which is your image. So hence, this is why some computers will say that this is a 24-bit image, because it has 256 shades of each possible color. Hence, that's how you get the 24. But it has a 8-bit color depth. So this is the part that might sound a little confusing. But especially if you're going to go into computer graphics, you have to know the difference. Because, for example, let's say that you have a device that you're going to use for a presentation, and it says it only supports 8-bit color depth images, or rather it only supports a 24-bit image. Who was it that said they found an image on the computer that was, what you said it was again? 48? 32. So that would mean that if you go to a meeting with this device and you try to open that 32-bit image, it just would not open. But what I'm hoping that you take away from today's class is understanding, okay, so what does it mean when it says 24-bit depth? Well, now you know. Sorry, when it says a 24-bit image, now you know. Because, 256 shades of each color. Then, remember, it is really sandwiching each of these colors together on top of one another to give you that final color. So this is why it is also known as a 8-bit color depth image. Now, you might notice some of you might have some images that are 32-bit color depth. Now, the reason for that is there is another channel that is added. So remember, red, green, and blue, they combine to give us any color on the spectrum. Now, who can tell me what do they think this additional channel does? Any guesses? That's a good guess. In a way, it is kind of like a tint. But this is where PNG images come into play. Because what feature does a PNG image have that a JPEG does not have? It's an easy question. Exactly. That is exactly so. So a PNG image will have an additional channel between 0 and 256. But instead, the computer uses that image to determine the transparency of a particular pixel. So if you go back to Photoshop here, remember how this worked, right? We had this image here, and we could zoom into this image till we can get down to every pixel. Now again, if I select this one pixel here, where's my color picker? Alright, shortcut is I. So I choose this image here, and did I close my color thing? Okay, here, right. And come on. Yes, I know that it has a value of red, green, and blue. However, in a PNG image, it also tells me how transparent this image is, this pixel is. So it stores another set of information for every single pixel. And that's how you get a PNG image having 32 bits of color, because it has another channel that determines that. Okay, everybody understand this so far? Any questions? That's right. Right, that is correct. Right. So if I take this very pixelated image here, you can see that it has transparency in these areas. So what would happen is that the pixel, well, let me kind of zoom in. Okay, look at this pixel right here. Now if I use my color picker and pick on this pixel, go. color. There we go. Now, in addition to telling me what shade this is, it also stores an alpha channel as well, right? And well, I'm not going to go into it just yet, but in Photoshop, you use this alpha channel to do many things. But the computer will recognize that as a whole nother channel altogether. Now, I'm going to end on an interesting note. Has anybody ever seen an image that is 48-bit? Anybody?
Not really sure, but personally, I don't really touch these things myself.
Right, I got you. The computer kind of just does most of these things for us, but guess what? It's important that you guys understand what they mean, especially if you're going to use computer graphics a lot. Now, there are images that would say 48-bit. For example, you might go and buy a really expensive camera, and the camera says, hey, this camera can produce 48-bit images at 16-bit color depth. So I want you guys to answer the question. If your regular JPEG image is at 8-bit color depth, and remember what that means. If I go out and buy a camera that can give me 16-bit color depth, what is that telling me about the colors? Anybody? Jeremy? Start call out some name now, right? Take a swing at it, Jeremy.
The time is 1 p.m. Lunchtime.
Repeat that for me. Mm-hmm. That can produce a 16. Hold on. Let me take it one layer at a time. That can produce a 16-bit color depth image. What is that telling us about the colors?
It's saying that it has a wider range of RGB.
Okay, a wider range. All right, you're getting warm. All right, I give you most of the marks for that answer. I was looking for it. I'm looking for that explanation to be a bit more clear. Anybody else? Yes, also correct. Not quite hitting that explanation where I wanted to hit, but that would be correct. Let me take one more. All right. Now, that would be the closest answer that I am actually looking for. So yes, you are correct. Instead of there being 256 shades, now there are 65,000 shades. Pretty cool, right? So you're probably saying, whoa, that's a lot of shades. I mean, if imagine, look at how far we're coming from. We're coming from a 1-bit image that has just 2 possible shades. Then we understand the fact that, okay, so the more shades there are, is the smoother the color will be, right? So 8-bit is reached is the point where the image looks pretty smooth, but 16-bit, like 65,000 shades, that's just like, I mean, if it's smoother than this, then what is the point, you're probably saying. right? And let me go back here. I mean, your actual computer device, meaning your monitor, your phone, the individual LED lights in your phone, those two have limits on how many shades of color they can produce, and most of them can produce 8-bit. Now, a 16-bit image would mean that there are more possibility of colors. But then look at this chart here that we're looking at. Yes, it's easy for your eyes to see the difference between 2-bit, but beyond 8-bit, you cannot perceive 65,000 shades of color. When you look on that range, it's just going to look like a gradient, because 8-bit already looks like a gradient. How do you know? Well, the screen that you're looking at now has 8-bit color. It has an 8-bit color depth. That's the correct way to say it. It has an 8-bit color depth because it has 256 possible shades of a mixture of red, green, and blue, and alpha in some cases, depending. Of course, when you have 65,000 shades, there's no way to see that with your eye, right? And even the most expensive monitor that you can buy is still only like 10-bit color depth. The weird thing is that this is why most monitors, most devices, most cell phones, everything that you use will always say 8-bit color depth. Because the human eye can't see more than 256 shades. So then what's the point of making a device that has more? You guys follow me? So let me ask you a question. Why do you think, I'm just throwing this one out, just kind of throwing it out in the Wild West. Why do you think, what would be the advantage of having a color, an image with a 16-bit color depth? Yes, that's a good theoretical answer. True. But even at that large screen, like if you've ever had the unfortunate opportunity to be the one sitting in the first row of a movie theater, is that the most comfortable seat? Or is it the most uncomfortable seat? Exactly. So you come into that weird formula of the closer you are, you can see the pixels. Possibly you can even see the difference in shades of color. But then how are you going to experience the movie if you're like so close that you can see it? You're going to need to be far. But if you're far, you're not going to notice the resolution or even the color depth. So that's why I like your answer, but it's not 100% correct. But it is a smart answer. Anybody else want to take a swing of it? Why do you think, what would be the advantage of having an image?
When you're printing like a large posters like a billboard or something like that.
That's also a good answer. However, when you're printing, you're no longer using the RGB formula. You're now using CMYK, which doesn't operate on a bit scale. the physical paint and paint particles. It doesn't go by, you know, levels of bits. That only exists in the digital realm. So, well, I realize that we're kind of running short on time. So, what I would say though is that the primary purpose of that, and the answer is not difficult to understand, is because of editing. So, the fact that you cannot see that level of detail in an image doesn't mean that it is not there. You get me? So if I open an image that has a 16-bit color depth, yes, it has a 16-bit color depth, and that information is in the image, but, and I'm going to show you an example here as my final kind of thing. So if you look on this image here, right, you can see that it looks a little weird, right? Kind of zoom in so you can see it a bit clearer. Now this image here is if I look on image mode, all right, so this is a 8-bit image. And I'm going to open another image here. And this image that I'm opening is a 16-bit image. So let me just kind of set it up for you. There we go. Let's kind of minimize this so we can get some more space. And here goes the other one here. There we go. Kind of zoom out. And all right, yes, I know. It's because I turn on because we're looking at images, I beef up the quality. So it's gonna slow down the stream, but it's actually gonna be faster if you watch it on YouTube. It should be much smoother. But it's gonna be delayed. You know how that formula works already. So you can always watch the stream after, or if you want, you can watch it now. I can paste it in the chat for you. But yeah, when you turn up the quality for the zoom screen share, it's gonna get choppy but clear. But I need things to be clear to show you these examples, right? So at the top you can see where I have 24-bit at the top, which is a regular image, and 32 at the bottom, meaning the bottom image has 64,000 possibilities of shades of gray, and the top image has regular 256. Now both of them look similar, and as I said before, just because you don't see that information doesn't mean it is not there. So a person will take a image that is 16-bit color depth because they have more range in which to edit the image. So for example, let me just adjust something like color, one of these, maybe exposure. Right, let's adjust the exposure. Now on the regular 8-bit image, 8-bit color depth, right? This is the regular JPEG and these images that you will see on the computer. When I manipulate come on, where are you gone? Here we go. Just kind of extend this out a bit more. No, this is curves. I don't want curves, I want exposure. Right. So when I change the exposure of this image, you can see the exposure is being changed, right? so I can make it like brighter. It's like changing the brightness. I can make it brighter, and I can make it duller. However, look on the 32-bit image below. No, I'm going to do the same thing. So I can make it duller. I can make it brighter. So let's make two of them duller. Tell me, what do you notice between these two images? I made two of them dull by the same amount. The colors are right. One is blown out. So now let me put back the exposure back at default. So I'm going to put that at 0, and I'm going to put this at 0. Now at 0, both of them look exactly the same. Everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
So what is really happening here is that the computer can only see, just like your eyes in real life, your computer can only see a range of information at a time. So for example, have you guys ever turn off auto exposure off your phone, turn it into the sun, and take a picture? What do you think will happen when you take that picture? Exactly. Now, if you showed me that picture and say, this is a picture of the sun, I mean, I wouldn't know, because I'm just going to see white. But if you turn your camera to the sun and you take your phone or your camera could take a 16-bit image. When you show me that image, yes, it's going to look blown out like this. But all of that information that you have captured in that image, a program like Photoshop can allow you to access that information. So when I scroll down on the exposure scale, what I'm doing is accessing additional information that is there, but I just can't see it at the get-go. So what I'm trying to say is that when you have an image with a greater bit depth, it has more information, more shades. Even though you can't see it, it's there. And if you put it in a program that allows you to unlock that information, you can use it. So this is why a photographer would maybe use a camera that can take a 10-bit image, because the range of information that they would capture with that camera, even though you can only see 8-bit at a time, that when you throw that into Photoshop, you can edit it. And this is why I say the purpose of having an image that goes higher than 8-bit is for the purpose of editing. So if you had a really good camera and you wanted to give me to edit some images, I would say give me the 10-bit image or the 16-bit image, because I can have more information that I can access. You know, when you look at the 8-bit image here, I can't see what is in the sky here, but I can see the tree over here. Sorry, just realized that I'm not showing you my mouse. Right, I can see the tree over here, but I can't see what is happening in the sky. But when I adjust the exposure, now I can see what's happening in the sky, but now the tree is very dark. You get what I'm saying? So you can't get best of both worlds. And this is where Well, has anybody heard the latest hype about HDR? Anybody have heard that name being thrown around with TVs and video games and screen? Right. Right. So what HDR is HDR. Well, so what it's supposed to do is bring those ranges closer. No longer do you have to choose. For example, when you turn your camera into the sun and you have auto exposure on, then naturally it's going to turn everything else down in order to absorb the brightness of the sun. But when you turn your picture into a dark area, it's going to bring everything else bright to try and brighten the image. So what HDR does is that it carries those range closer together automatically. So for example, this image looks blown out for the sky, but for the ground, I can see it nice and clear. But if I want to see the sky clear, now the ground is too dark. So if I was watching this footage on an HDR device, it's supposed to give me what the sky should look like and what the grass should look like automatically, without me going into Photoshop and dulling the image here and cutting out this bottom part and making it bright, going through it. The computer does all of that for you automatically on video. At least that conceptually, that's what HDR does. Anyway guys, so this was just a talk for you on bit depth and for you to understand a bit more of what bit depth does and how it works. And most of us will probably only ever interact with an 8-bit image because most of your devices and will take an 8-bit image. But just know that images that can go higher in bit depth, they have more information you can access, especially when editing. Okay guys, so that is pretty much it for today. Any questions on today's class, today's lecture? Yeah man, so this video was recorded. Yep, yes it was. And for the most part it was recorded in HD, even though I turned off the HD now. What I realized is that I'm getting more used to this technology stuff. The harder your computer has to work is the blurrier your broadcast will be. So for example, right now my CPU is at 100%. So it's the broadcast is struggling. But when you watch the stream, you will see it much clearer. Alright, so you can always rewatch the video. Anyway guys, so this was any other questions? Actually the link is the link going to change? I think the link will remain the same. Well, it's going to be on where all the videos are stored, and they recorded. When you go to the student website and you go to class recordings, that's where you'll find it. All right. Okay.